Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Doctor Who Episode 4. We've got the viewership figures. They're still in the toilet, but to be completely transparent, there's been a slight uptick, interestingly. So we're going to take a look at this. It's worth going into. BBC/Disney/Rotten Tomatoes are still blocking reviews, so that is interesting to look at as well. I wonder why that is. And yeah, we'll take a look. Hit subscribe if you're new here. Turn the bell notifications on. And if you like what I do, support further via Patreon, via the link in the description box for as little as $2 a month, because YouTube demonetizes the channel quite a lot. So, be good if you helped out. Anyway, let's take a look. So, Doctor Who TV is where I've got the viewership figures from. They have consistently... oh, just every single time they've released viewership figures. Now, these are the overnight figures that I've got here today. But we also have, to compare it, the viewing figures from the last couple of weeks, plus the 7 days as well. They haven't released the 7 days yet for episode 3, Boom. Which is, again, still weird. And we still haven't got the figures for Disney yet either. Even though people were trying to tout it as some massive raging success because it was like, it's in the top 10. How did you know that? Samba TV hasn't reported that. Nielsen hasn't reported that. These are independent sort of, you know, tracking systems outside of Disney. I'm not going to trust anything but them, and neither should you unless you're an idiot and a bias. But anyway, let's take a look, shall we? So, quick guide. Overnight TV ratings only include those who watched it live and those who recorded and watched it later that week, which is not going to happen when we get the viewing figures the day after. It's quite literally just the overnight figures. So, here we have it. So, episode 1. Weirdly, episode 4... so, basically, episode 1 to episode 4. Episode 4 has crossed 2.62 million. So, more than the debut. Not quite understanding that. Lots of people will be like, well, that's because, you know, first week they were watching Eurovision, or it was good weather, or some other nonsense excuse. But it didn't really do very well on iPlayer. Now, +7, +4, you can see there, +7 TV, +4 screen is everything. That is iPlayer, that is live, that is across mobile, TV, laptop, whatever, you name it. It's basically every single thing included. And it only got 4 million. So there has been an uptick. There has been an uptick. Now, you can't blame that on the weather in the UK. The weather's been, like, you can't say it ticked up because the weather was bad. So the logic of people didn't tune in the first week because the weather was good doesn't apply. If that makes sense. The weather wasn't bad last night in the UK. I know. I live here in the UK. Like, it was okay. It was pretty fine, to be fair. It's now it started to cool down a little bit, but last night was fine. So 2.62 million. I'm gonna guess, right? And this is full transparency. This is me being as objective as possible. Is that some of those people that watched it on iPlayer have now carried over to watching it live again. Right? That would make sense. Plus some of the people that watched episode 1. But it is interesting that there was such a big drop-off from episode 1 to episode 3. And then such a big uptick from episode 3 to episode 4. Right? I mean, it's nearly 500,000 more. Now, I think the true test will be next week. In 7 days' time. Because in 7 days' time, we will then have the viewing figures for episode 3. +7. Plus BBC iPlayer. Now, if they're more than the viewing figures for episode 1, right, then that shows that a lot of people were just busy that weekend. That makes sense. That's being objective. For episode 4, next week, when we get those figures next week, for the 7 day, plus the iPlayer, plus blah, 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 if they are about the same as episode 1, we know that people just carried over and watched it live. But I don't think, and I'll go out on a limb, that this show will crack 5 million views an episode. I think it will really struggle, actually. Now, again, I could be wrong. There might be an extra million people that have, you know, tuned in and watched it. I don't know. Who knows? We don't have those 7-day figures yet. But, I mean, that in and unto itself is quite weird that we don't have those figures. We're not getting them quicker. We also don't have what Doctor Who TV says here is Audience Appreciation Index. They haven't released the Audience Appreciation Index yet. So, I'm going to press X to doubt on any of those figures when they do come out if they're good. Because why have you not released them yet? You have them. Why have you not released them? And this ties in quite... So, basically, the viewing figures are still bad. Make no mistake. 2.6 is not good. Right? There are episodes of Doctor Who with 10 million views. Okay? So, 2.6 is not good. Is it better than it was comparatively last week? Yeah, sure. But that's, you know, better than a worse situation. It's not great anyway. So, don't get it twisted. Don't get excited. This is terrible still. Any Doctor Who episode that is getting less than 6, 7, 8 million views is a disaster. Okay? It's a disaster. This is not good. They've cancelled it for less than this. So, no, this is not good. Anyway, but what is interesting is this. Rotten Tomatoes. So the score keeps changing. So people are reviewing it. The score keeps changing. Okay? But they're not showing the reviews. They've just kept blocking all of the reviews. There is nothing more recent than the 14th of May. They did, because I came to look last week and it was all blocked then as well. They're allowing reviews to go in, but they're not letting them go out. So people can't read people's reviews. The number is fluctuating. Okay, the number is fluctuating, but these figures, these reviews here, sorry, are not being updated. We're not getting new reviews, which is very, very suspect. If you cannot agree with that, you're a moron. It's very, very suspect. Very odd. So, like I said, Doctor Who ratings, not great. Still a disaster. Better. It's a less of a disaster, but it's still a disaster. Remember, these episodes have had 10 million views before. Not these particular ones, obviously. But episodes of Doctor Who have had 10 million views before. So this is an unmitigated failure for the BBC. And mark my words, ladies and gents. If Disney thought that they could wangle the viewing figures as something positive, they would. They did it for Ahsoka. Failed. But they did it for Ahsoka. They're not doing anything for Doctor Who. You've heard nothing from Disney. So this is still a disaster. It's still terrible. I can't wait to see when we get the 7 days through. And I can't wait to see when we get the audience index. Leave your thoughts down below. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye now.